Hey, it's Meatball.
And Mark.
And this is the Rocker Morning Show on demand from 107.7 RKR.
Mark, you're on with Mark and Meatball.
Hey, good morning, Mark. How you doing?
Good morning, Mark.
What's up?
Not a whole lot, man. One of the 5 original MTV VJs on this, the anniversary of MTV's launch, also hosted the podcast Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, which we'll hit on in a bit. Welcome to the Rocker Morning Show, man.
Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Man,
Appreciate it.
it is the 43rd anniversary of the launch of MTV. This is kind of funny. I know one of the earliest producers of MTV his name is Alan Goodman. Are you any relation to him, or is that like some kind of coincidence?
Total coincidence.
That's really funny.
Guy is.
That's funny, because I was curious about that. I was like, I wonder if they were related. But I know we've spoken to a few people who were a part of MTV in those early days, like Ricky Rackman and your fellow VJ, Nina Blackwood. I'm curious how you feel about the evolution of the MTV channel going through the heavy video years of the 80s and 90s to the reality era to where it is now.
Yeah. MTV is to blame for reality television. I'm sorry. That was not my choice. But the evolution of it is, in a way, it kind of hurts. I don't watch it anymore. There's no reason for me to watch it. I don't like reality TV. I don't need to see any. I don't care about that stuff. And even I have a daughter who's 31 years old. When she was a teenager, I didn't really want her watching. There was all this 16 and pregnant and all of that stuff. So it sort of hurts that that's the way that it evolved. But they had to do that. Because of the nature of technology and the nature of the music business, it had to evolve into what it has become. There's no reason for a TV station 24/7 playing videos. We've got YouTube. No need for it anymore.
Yeah. Do you wish that maybe that reality direction had focused a little more on, the music industry, maybe?
I just don't. I don't like reality television. The reason that reality happened for us and continues to happen is because it's cheap.
Yeah.
You can produce shows really cheap. And, I don't like that particular kind of programming. So the stuff that we were doing, I think, at MTV, I was really proud. There was a woman named Linda Corradina who came, and she was head of the news department.
Yeah.
And we got involved with Rock the Vote. And we started to use the success and the fame that we had as a channel to get people involved, get them registered to vote, get them involved in doing things that were going to help the country. I love that. I was proud of MTV for that.
Well, and that plays into, probably your radio DJ background, because, we're, obviously radio DJs too. And one thing that I think that we serve well is that we have that community attachment and that we were on top of the serious subjects as well as having some fun too. One thing you had to do, and I always wonder about people's perception in these moments, you were on air reporting the night that John Lennon was killed. How difficult was it back then, to get the information and stuff versus now where it's literally at your fingertips every second of the day?
Oof, that was... Oh, God, what a night that was. The way that I found out about it that night, first inklings I had came from listeners. People calling who were watching, it was Monday night, and they were watching Monday Night Football. And Howard Cosell said, we got a report that John Lennon has been shot. They didn't even know what his condition was.
Wow.
And as soon as I started to get I got 3 calls like that right in a row. And the station I was working for, PLJ, was an ABC affiliate, so I went around to the other side, to the ABC side, to check the news department, and they were just starting to get the news that not only was he shot, but within 15 minutes we knew that he was dead.
Wow.
Jeez.
And it was the second time in my career, and last so far, that I cried on the air.
Man.
It was just, I lived literally right next door to the Dakota.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
I had to come home that night, and they wouldn't let me on the block until I showed my license to show that I lived there. There was, 500 people in front of the Dakota.
Yeah.
Flowers, and they were listening to us. They were listening to my radio station.
Man, that's incredible.
What a night. What a night.
Yeah.
Well, you eventually, took your radio career, turned it into MTV, where you were cast as, kind of the guy who could reach everyone on the TV, but you also hosted, a few of those shows yourself. Were you passionate about the music back then? Were you passionate about any specific genre of music or rock at all?
The reason that I got into radio was because I sucked as a musician.
I feel you.
So, I was so passionate about the music, and in fact, when I quit the radio station in New York, the reason that I did it was because it was an AOR station, album-oriented rock. So
yeah.
The playlist, you knew what it was. It was the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, the Who. And I'm sorry, in 1979, there was a lot more going on in music than that. And when I quit in 1980, I quit, or 81 rather, I quit because I was looking for what I called the new underground. I wanted to play the amazing music that was happening that wasn't getting played.
Right.
Just by a stroke of luck, this MTV thing came along, and what would we play? But music by these obscure bands, because that's who was making the video.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's awesome. So you literally got to transition your career right to what you wanted to do. So kind of revitalized your career in a sense.
Well, I mean, look, you guys are in radio. You know what it is.
Yeah.
If you get a job at the number one station in the number one market in the country, that's it. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And when I told my friends that I was going to quit, 7 months into my contract to go to cable television, they thought I was insane.
Yeah.
It worked out okay.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And you've always kept your love for radio. In fact, as we mentioned, you have a podcast called Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. Tell us about this.
Alan Light is an amazing rock and roll journalist. He writes constantly for the Times and the Washington Post. He wrote a book, one of his many books, called Let's Go Crazy. He spent a year with Prince. And he and I did a talk show called Debatable on the channel called Volume on Sirius XM, which was a talk channel about music, like political talk or sports talk, guests, phone calls, topics. And after 7 years, Sirius XM shut the channel down.
Wow.
So Alan and I, who are great friends, and I love working with the guy, he's a genius, we just took it to podcast. I don't understand podcasts, but I love working with Alan. I don't know how. I'm just happy that you're mentioning it, and I hope people listen. I don't understand podcasts. To me, between you and me, crappy radio.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say about podcasting is like, especially if you get on one or something, everybody has an opinion about something. So, of course, there's a podcast for everything. Music being one of those things that everyone has an opinion on. And I have to tell you, as somebody who works in radio on a classic rock station too, like one of my favorite things to do with listeners is to discuss music and discuss our differences and learn about new bands and old bands and stuff like, and you get to do that every day with a podcast like that. That just sounds awesome.
It really is. And we are using this software that allows us to have people join us. We give, when we're promoting the podcast, we give people a tape time and an invitation. If they can write to us, and if they want to join us on the taping, they can do that. We have software that we can have a bunch of people in the room with us as we're doing the show. So we try to do that. It's, like I said, it's a weird thing. I don't completely understand it yet, but I'm happy to work with Alan, and I am happy. We have guests. We've had, I have Pete Townsend on when Tommy opened on Broadway.
Awesome.
We just had the Hansroth twins who work with Brandy Carlisle. I don't know. You guys don't play Brandy, I know, but we've had them on, and we've, the DBs, like these obscure bands from the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm able to put those guys on, and brand new artists as well. It's great. I love it.
That's sweet. Well, we'll try to have to surprise you and hop on there one day.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Come on, bring it.
Anybody who wants to know more about the early days of MTV, Mark also co-authored the book VJ, The Unplugged Adventures of MTV's First Wave, which is available on Amazon, anywhere you can get books. Also, Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, wherever you can get your podcast. Also, 80s on the 8 and Classic Rewind. Mark, it was a blast talking to you. Thanks for being part of something special that was special to us growing up, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, both of you. Really appreciate you having me on, man. Have a great day.
You too.
See you, Mark.